I'm Sarah, 42, a seamstress in the river town of Marlow, where summer nights throb with cicada song and gossip carries faster than the wind. My boutique sits on Ashford Street, a snug, sunlit space where fabric becomes possibility. Wedding gowns, prom dresses, christening robes. But the truest thread in my life is my daughter, Sandra. 18, fierce-eyed, with a smile that could pierce the darkest storm. She's walked through more shadows than any young woman should, and still, she stands straight. I learned the craft young, my grandmother's hands guiding mine, every stitch anchored in patience and love. Sandra's graduation dress was to be the pinnacle of that love. Ivory chiffon cascading like a breath of air, silver thread winding through the seams, pearls catching the light as if they'd been stolen from fireflies. It wasn't just a dress, it was a promise that she would step into her future knowing she was cherished, untouchable. The morning before her graduation, I unlocked the back room where the dress waited on its mannequin. My breath snagged in my throat. Silk and lace lay in ribbons across the floor, like the remains of some delicate creature mauled beyond repair. Pearls rolled into the shadows, their soft clinks louder than thunder in that sudden, ringing silence. I didn't need evidence to know who'd done it. I'd seen the glint in Kimberly's eyes the day before, my mother-in-law bearing a bundle of old fabric she insisted I'd find useful, her smile too tight, her gaze like a blade sheathed in politeness. Kimberly has never accepted Sandra. From the day I married Joshua 7 years ago, she made it plain that I was an intruder, and my daughter, a relic from my first marriage, an unwelcome shadow. Joshua's late wife had been her saint, her standard, and we would never measure up. She'd chipped at Sandra for years, a spilled jar of paint that ruined her art portfolio before a school show, forgotten messages about art club meetings, each act cloaked as an accident, each one followed by Joshua's weary refrain. She doesn't mean it, Sarah. She's just set in her ways. But this was no accident. This was an execution. 7 months of my work lay in tatters, and the thought of Sandra walking onto that stage without the dress she'd dreamed of, it clawed at something primal in me. Anger burned in my chest, but beneath it was fear. Fear that Kimberly's cruelty would mark Sandra's proudest day, not while I was breathing. I called Rebecca, my closest friend, another seamstress who's been my anchor through every storm. Her voice crackled through the line. "Sarah, you sound like you're standing in the wreckage of something." "I am," I said, my voice rough. I told her everything. The shredded chiffon, the pearls under my fingers, Kimberly's visit, a sharp intake of breath. She destroyed it? That's not just spite, that's vandalism. Call the police. I shook my head, even though she couldn't see. And watch her deny it while Joshua plays peacemaker? You know the script. She cries, he forgives, and I'm the villain for accusing her. Rebecca's tone hardened. Then what's the plan? Because if you let her win this... I glanced at the wall calendar where Sandra's big day glowed in red marker, surrounded by stars. My girl had fought for every triumph she'd earned. I felt my jaw tighten, my pulse slow into something deliberate. "She won't win," I said. "Not this time. Straight A's, state art honors, a coveted spot as a speaker at the ceremony. Sandra had earned every ounce of her moment, and I refused to let it be ruined. Not by Kimberly, not by anyone. Then a thought slid in, bright and dangerous. "Rebecca, remember the emerald gown?" I asked, a slow edge in my voice. A low chuckle escaped her. "You actually went through with it, didn't you? You devious woman." After last year's little accident with Sandra's portfolio, I'd started sewing in secret. No fanfare, no witnesses. Just me. Green satin that shimmered like leaves in moonlight, and hours stolen between clients. Every bead caught the light like a spark. It had been tucked away for months in the farthest corner of the boutique, zipped inside a garment bag behind a row of long-forgotten dresses. I went to the closet now, my pulse deliberate, my hands steady as I unzipped the bag. The gown glowed, bolder than I remembered, luminous, unapologetic. I snapped a photo and sent it to Rebecca. "It's perfect," she said softly. "Sandra will adore it. But Kimberly will be there tomorrow, waiting for her little victory lap." "Let her," I murmured. "She thinks she's dismantled us. She has no idea what we can rebuild." The front bell chimed. "Mom, I'm home from rehearsal." Damn. She wasn't supposed to see this yet. I shoved the bag behind a curtain and stepped out. Sandra came in, flushed from the excitement of the final run-through, until her gaze drifted to the back room. The light in her eyes flickered out. Her steps slowed as she took in the shredded silk, the pearls scattered like tiny, gleaming casualties. "Mom," her voice quavered, "my dress. What happened?" I wrapped my arms around her, feeling her tremble. "It was Kimberly," I said quietly. She stiffened in my hold as if bracing for impact. "But she hasn't won. Not yet." She pulled back, tears swimming, but her gaze locked on mine. "The ceremony's tomorrow. What do we do now?" I retrieved the hidden bag, my voice low but sure. "She's always underestimated us." When I opened it, the green dress spilled into the light. Sandra's breath caught. Her fingers drifted over the beadwork like she was touching a dream. "You made this. For me." I nodded, my throat tightening, because nothing, and no one, gets to dim your light. Graduation morning broke crisp and bright, the kind of day where the sky feels infinite. I was curling Sandra's hair when Joshua stepped into the doorway. His eyes went straight to the emerald gown hanging from the door frame. "That's not the dress you showed me last week," he said slowly. I pinned a curl, keeping my tone even. "Ask your mother about that. She dropped by the shop yesterday." His brow furrowed. "She wouldn't." I met his gaze in the mirror. "The remains are still in my workroom if you want proof. 7 months, gone in minutes." He hesitated, but Sandra cut in, her voice steady. "Dad, it's not the first time. Remember my portfolio? Or when she canceled my art show entry and pretended it was Mom?" Joshua paled, the weight of memory settling in, but I didn't press. Today wasn't for arguments, it was for Sandra. We arrived at the school early, the parking lot buzzing with polished shoes and Sunday smiles. Sandra joined the other speakers, her emerald gown catching the sunlight, turning heads as if she'd stepped out of some other, brighter world. Near the entrance, Kimberly stood beside Laura, her lips pinched. The moment her eyes found Sandra's dress, her expression curdled. "What is she wearing?" she hissed to Joshua. "That's not the dress you showed me." I smiled, letting my words carry just far enough for nearby parents to catch. "No, that one was destroyed yesterday by someone with a key only family has. Lucky for us, I've always kept a spare." Kimberly flushed scarlet. Laura blinked at her, puzzled. "Someone broke it?" Laura asked, brow furrowing. "Not broken," I replied, my smile unshaken. "Destroyed, and they used a key." I let my gaze linger on Kimberly. "Right, nah?" Before she could craft a lie, the principal's voice rose over the crowd, calling everyone to their seats. As we moved inside, I caught the low murmur of Kimberly's voice to Joshua, most likely the same tired mix of excuses and self-pity. I didn't bother to listen. Her words were irrelevant now. On stage, the lights found Sandra, turning the emerald gown into a living forest at dusk. She stood straight, notes in hand, her presence pulling the audience forward in their chairs. A few rows ahead, Kimberly sat rigid, bracing for something she didn't understand was already inevitable. Sandra's voice rang clear. "Life isn't defined by the people who try to keep you small," she began, her eyes locking on mine. "It's defined by the way you keep moving forward. Sometimes, the hands that should lift you up are the same ones that push you down. Strength isn't just standing tall, it's rising again, every single time you're knocked down." The room went utterly still. Every word carried the weight of years, of slights, sabotage, and open wounds. The emerald dress shimmered like an unspoken vow between us. I glanced at Joshua. His eyes glistened, the truth finally cracking through years of denial. I knew the battle in his chest, the slow, grinding realization that every accident he'd brushed aside had been deliberate. When Sandra finished, the applause thundered through the hall. Parents leaned toward one another, whispering, and I saw glances flick toward Kimberly, who sat frozen, her fury barely contained. After the ceremony, in the hum of the parking lot, Kimberly approached with a strained smile. I reached into my purse and pulled out a small leather journal, the spine worn from use. "Nah," I said evenly, "let's discuss yesterday." Her smile faltered. I opened the journal and began reading. March, 2 years ago. You spilled paint on Sandra's portfolio the night before her exhibition. June last year. You called the school pretending to be me, canceling her art show entry. Her eyes widened. Laura looked stunned. You kept a record. Every incident, I said, flipping pages marked with dates, witnesses, even a photo of the ruined portfolio. I knew proof would matter one day. Joshua took the journal, his hands trembling. "Mom," he said, voice breaking, "how could you? Sandra's my daughter as much as anyone could be." "She's not your real daughter," Kimberly snapped, her mask slipping. Joshua's reply came sharp, louder than I'd ever heard. "She's more my family than you are right now. Hand over your house key. You're not welcome back until you fix this." Laura's voice cut in, low and heavy. "Did you really tell her art teacher she was unreliable just to keep her out of the showcase?" Kimberly stammered, but her silence was louder than any denial. The rest of the day blurred into light and noise. Sandra crossing the stage, her gown blazing under the auditorium lights, the crowd cheering as though they'd known her whole story. Compliments poured in from parents and teachers, each one a small, clean victory. I caught Kimberly watching from a distance, her eyes restless, calculating. For the first time, there was a flicker of fear. Not of me, but of something she couldn't dismantle. Sandra's resilience, our unshakable bond, the truth laid bare. That evening, we celebrated at Sandra's favorite diner, a little place with checkered floors and milkshakes thick enough to eat with a spoon. She sat in her dress still, laughing over a plate of fries, the weight Kimberly had tried to chain to her finally gone. Across the table, Joshua's hand found mine. His voice was quiet, raw. "I'm sorry, Sarah. I should have seen what she was doing years ago." Sandra leaned over, wrapping her arms around him. "You see it now, Dad. That's enough." My chest tightened as I watched them, father and daughter, holding on to each other like the world had finally shifted into place. Not perfect, but real, stronger for the fractures. Later, both our phones buzzed with notifications. Kimberly had taken to social media, posting a lengthy public apology for her recent mistakes and announcing she was stepping back from her church and community positions to reflect. Sandra glanced up from her milkshake, one eyebrow arched. "Think she means it?" I laughed softly. "Not for a second, but she knows we're holding enough to shatter her perfect facade if she ever tries again." The journal, the photographs, the security footage from my boutique's camera, every piece of proof tucked away where she could never touch it, a quiet shield, ready if we needed to draw it. A few days later, Laura called. His voice was low, almost weary. He'd found a box in their attic, broken paintbrushes, torn sketches, even the ribbon from Sandra's first art show. She kept them, he said, disgust thick in his throat, like trophies. He told me he'd already spoken to a lawyer. Divorce papers were coming. Justice doesn't always announce itself with a gavel's slam. It can arrive quietly, steadily, like the slow filling of a tide. That evening, I placed the emerald dress carefully in Sandra's closet. The fabric caught the light one last time, gleaming like a promise. It wasn't just a gown, it was evidence. Proof that we could take the ugliest thing someone hurled at us and turn it into something breathtaking. Kimberly had spent years trying to dim Sandra's light, but all she'd done was teach us how to guard it, magnify it, make it blaze. I'd spent those same years teaching my daughter not just to endure, but to rise, meeting cruelty with composure and betrayal with a strength that would outlast anyone's spite. To those who've walked beside us through every betrayal, every heartbreak, every hard-earned victory, thank you. You've been part of our story, stitch by stitch. Every moment, every battle, every thread is proof that love, when tempered by resilience, becomes unbreakable. Keep weaving your own truth, and I'll see you in the next chapter.